Sign here, here, and here. Emily's hand trembled over the contract. Richard Stone's office, 72 floors above Manhattan, felt like standing on the edge of the world. The city sprawled beneath them, a grid of lights still burning at 4 in the morning, indifferent to the choice she was about to make. Once you sign, there's no going back, Richard said, those grey eyes holding hers with the intensity of a man who'd built empires on reading people. She'd met this man exactly 4 hours and 17 minutes ago. He'd been a stranger, a customer at table 12. Now he was offering her everything. But 12 hours from now, she'd wish she'd run. Before we continue, let's know in the comments section what time it is where you are viewing from. And don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. Emily Donovan's feet were killing her. 2 years of waiting tables at Lumiere, and she still hadn't learned the trick of making 4-inch heels feel like anything other than torture devices. She refilled water glasses at table 7, smiled at table 9's request to split their check 6 ways instead of 4, and tried not to think about the number glowing in her mind. $2,400. Rent. Due in 3 days. Her checking account had $891. The math didn't work. It never worked. But she'd figure it out. She always did. Emily, table 12, just sat. Her manager, Derek, appeared at her elbow with that look, the one that said the customers were important, and she should be grateful for the opportunity to serve them. VIP section, don't screw it up. She grabbed a water pitcher and headed to the private corner booth. 5 people, 4 men in suits that probably cost more than her car, 1 woman wearing heels Emily recognized from a Vogue spread. And in the center, the man everyone recognized, Richard Stone. Even people who didn't follow business news knew his face. Forbes called him the Shark of Wall Street, self-made billionaire by 35, CEO of Stone Global Enterprises. The kind of man who appeared on magazine covers with headlines like, "The Man Who Never Loses." Emily poured water with the practiced invisibility of professional service staff. Rich people rarely looked at servers. You were part of the furniture. The subsection 12B clause gives us the regulatory bypass, one of the men was saying, scrolling through documents on an iPad. We execute on that and the merger clears in 48 hours. Clean. Emily's hand froze mid-pour. Subsection 12B. That wasn't right. She'd studied Dodd-Frank amendments last month in her online corporate law class, the degree she was finishing one night at a time, one semester at a time, whenever she could scrape together tuition. Subsection 12B wasn't the bypass clause, it was the poison pill. If they executed on 12B, the entire merger would auto-terminate in 30 days due to a regulatory trigger. Whatever deal they were discussing would collapse, spectacularly. She should stay, quiet. This wasn't her business. She was here to pour water and bring food and collect tips that never quite covered her expenses. But the lawyer kept talking, confident and completely wrong, and Richard Stone was nodding, and Emily could see the exact page in her mind, the exact clause, the exact catastrophic mistake they were about to make. "Excuse me," Emily said. 5 faces turned. The conversation stopped. Emily's heart hammered. "I think you mean subsection 12D, not B." The lawyer, his nameplate read Marcus Chen, stared at her. "I'm sorry, what?" No backing out now. Subsection 12B of the Dodd-Frank Amendment contains the automatic termination provision. If you don't get regulatory approval within 30 days, the deal terminates automatically. That's the poison pill clause. Subsection 12D is the bypass you want, Emily said. Then there was silence. Richard Stone leaned back in his chair. He didn't look annoyed or dismissive. He looked interested, the way someone might look at an unexpected puzzle piece that suddenly made the whole picture make sense. "Marcus," Richard said quietly, still looking at Emily, "is she right?" The lawyer's fingers flew across his iPad. The color drained from his face. "I need to... Let me just verify. Yes or no?" Richard asked with concern, a pause that felt like an eternity. "She's right," Marcus finally responded. The woman in the Vogue heels laughed once, sharp with disbelief. "You're joking!" Marcus wasn't laughing. He looked like he might be sick. Richard's expression didn't change, but something shifted in his eyes. Assessment. Calculation. "What's your name?" "Emily Donovan," she said. "Emily Donovan." He said it slowly, like he was filing it away somewhere important. "You just saved me approximately $89 million. What do you do when you're not correcting my lawyers?" Her mouth went dry. "I serve food." "No." His gaze sharpened. "What do you really do?" She hesitated. "I'm finishing a degree in corporate law, online classes, at night." Something flickered across his face. Recognition, maybe, or the beginning of an idea. He reached across the table and took Marcus's business card from his jacket pocket without asking. "Give this to her." "Richard, I don't think—" Marcus stammered. "I'm not asking." Marcus handed over his card with a trembling hand. Richard slid it across the pristine white tablecloth. "Call that number tomorrow morning," Richard said. "I may have work for someone with your particular skills." Emily took the card, her fingers unsteady. Derek appeared at her elbow, all fake concern and protective authority. "Is everything all right here, Mr. Stone?" "Perfect." Richard's voice was smooth, dismissive. "Your server has exceptional attention to detail. You should promote her." As Emily walked away on unsteady legs, she felt his eyes on her back. She didn't turn around. She couldn't tell if she'd just made the best decision of her life or the worst mistake. Emily didn't sleep. She lay in her cramped studio apartment, staring at Marcus Chen's business card on her nightstand like it might detonate. The numbers on her alarm clock crawled toward morning. 3:47 a.m. 4:12 a.m. 5:33 a.m. At 6 a.m. she gave up and made coffee. Her phone sat on the counter, silent and accusatory. "Call that number tomorrow morning," he'd said. But what did that even mean? Was it a real job offer or some rich man's whim that he'd forgotten the moment she walked away? She had 3 days until rent was due. $891 in her account. Tips from last night added another $147, which helped exactly nothing. Her laptop sat open on her kitchen counter, really just a fold-down table attached to the wall, with her corporate law assignment half finished. Analyze the fiduciary duties in Revlon, Inca and Vers McAndrews and Forbes Holdings. Due tonight. She'd planned to finish it after her shift, but instead she'd spent 4 hours mentally replaying a 30-second conversation with a billionaire. At 8:47 a.m. she called the number. It rang once. A crisp female voice answered. "Mr. Stone's office." Emily's prepared speech evaporated. "Hi, my name is Emily Donovan. Mr. Stone told me to call this number." "One moment, please," the voice said. Then there was silence. Then, "Ms. Emily Donovan." Richard Stone's voice, unmistakable. "You called?" "You told me to," Emily said. "I tell a lot of people to do things. Most of them don't follow through." Then a pause. "You're either brave or desperate. Which is it?" The honest answer sat on her tongue. "Does it matter?" He laughed. A real laugh, not the polite corporate chuckle she'd heard at the restaurant. "Fair enough. Are you free this afternoon?" Richard asked. She had a shift at Lumiere starting at 4 p.m. Derek would kill her if she called out. "Yes. My office, 1 o'clock. The receptionist will have your name." "What is this for?" Emily asked. "A job. Interview." He said it like it was obvious. "Unless you'd prefer to keep correcting my lawyers for free." The line went dead. Emily stared at her phone. A job interview. With Richard Stone. At Stone Global Enterprises. She opened her closet and confronted the reality of her wardrobe. Server uniforms, jeans, one semi-professional dress she'd bought at Goodwill for her cousin's wedding 3 years ago. This was going to be a disaster. Stone Global Enterprises occupied the top 15 floors of the Millennium Tower. The lobby was all marble and glass, and the kind of aggressive minimalism that screamed money. Emily's cheap heels clicked against the floor like they were announcing her fraudulence with every step. The receptionist, impossibly polished, impossibly young, smiled with professional warmth. Ms. Emily Donovan, Mr. Stone is expecting you. 47th floor. The elevator rose so smoothly, Emily barely felt the motion. When the doors opened, she stepped into a different world. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Furniture that looked like modern art. People in $1,000 suits moving with purpose, and expensive coffee. A woman in her 50s with steel-grey hair and the bearing of a general intercepted her. Emily Donovan? Yes, Emily answered. I'm Catherine Walsh, Mr. Stone's Chief of Staff. She looked Emily up and down with the efficiency of an X-ray machine. Follow me. They walked past offices and conference rooms, past assistants who looked up briefly before returning to their screens. Catherine stopped at a massive corner office with windows on two sides. Richard Stone stood at the window, phone to his ear, watching the city below like a chess master studying a board. He glanced up when they entered and ended his call mid-sentence. Emily. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Catherine left, closing the door behind her. Emily sat. Richard remained standing, studying her with that same calculating look from the restaurant. I looked into you, he said. GPA 3.9. Top of your class at community college before you transferred to the online program. No family money. Working 2 jobs, Lumiere, and weekend shifts at a bookstore. Rent 3 months behind last year until you picked up a 3rd job. You dropped it when your class load increased. He paused. You're smart, disciplined, and you don't quit. That's rare. Her throat felt tight. You ran a background check on me? Due diligence. I don't hire people I don't understand. He finally sat, leaning back in his chair. Here's what I'm offering. Analyst position. Corporate strategy division. 75,000 starting salary. Full benefits. You'll work directly with my M&A team, reviewing deals for legal and regulatory compliance. Emily's brain stalled. $75,000. That was more than double what she made in a year working herself to exhaustion. Why me? She managed. Because you saw something my entire legal team missed. Because you had the spine to speak up when it would have been easier to stay quiet. Because I need people who think like lawyers but haven't been ruined by law school yet. His eyes locked on hers. And because I'm curious to see what you can do when you're not exhausted. I haven't finished my degree. She said, You will. I'll cover the tuition. Consider it part of the benefits package. This was insane. This didn't happen in real life. People didn't get dream jobs because they corrected someone at a restaurant. There's a catch, Emily said. It wasn't a question. Richard smiled, the first genuine smile she'd seen from him. Smart girl. Yes, there's a catch. The hours are brutal. The work is high pressure. You'll be swimming with sharks who've been doing this since before you were born. Some of them will resent you. Most of them will try to push you out. He leaned forward. But if you survive, you'll learn more in 6 months than you would in 6 years anywhere else. And if I don't survive? Emily asked. Then you'll still have more on your resume than most people get in a lifetime. He slid a contract across the desk. Read it. Think about it. You have 24 hours to decide. Emily picked up the contract with shaking hands. The number was right there on page 1. $75,000 annual salary. Rent was due in 3 days. She looked up at Richard Stone, at this man who'd somehow decided she was worth investing in based on 30 seconds of conversation. I don't need 24 hours, she said. Where do I sign? Richard slid a pen across the desk. Page 12. Initial every page, signature at the end. Emily's hand moved through the motions. When she finished, Richard took the contract. You start Monday, 8 a.m. sharp. That gave her 5 days to quit both jobs, pay rent for the first time without panic, and buy a suit that didn't come from a thrift store. She spent Sunday night ironing that suit 3 times and not sleeping at all. Emily's first day at Stone Global Enterprises began with a lie. I'm fine, she told her reflection in the women's bathroom mirror on the 47th floor, even though her hands were shaking and her stomach felt like she'd swallowed broken glass. The suit she was wearing, navy blue, from a department store sale rack, had cost her $200 she didn't have. It fits okay, not great. Definitely not. I belong in this building, great, she said, smiling. She'd quit Lumiere 2 days ago. Derek had been furious. You're making a mistake, he'd said. These corporate jobs chew people up and spit them out. Maybe he was right, but she was here now, and there was no going back. Catherine Walsh appeared at 8 a.m. sharp, clipboard in hand, expression unreadable. Ready? Yes, Emily responded. Your desk is in the strategy division, open floor plan. You'll be sharing space with the junior analysts. Catherine led her through a maze of glass-walled offices and cubicles. Your computer. Login is your email. IT already set up your accounts. Weekly team meetings are Mondays at 9. Mr. Stone likes morning briefs by 7 a.m., so if you're assigned to anything touching his desk, you'll need to be here by 6. Emily's brain struggled to keep up. She'd worked opening shifts at the restaurant, but 6 a.m. in corporate terms felt different, sharper, more demanding. They stopped at a desk near the window. Decent location, computer, phone, a stack of folders already waiting. Marcus Chen will be your supervisor, Catherine said. He requested you specifically. The lawyer from the restaurant. The one who'd made the subsection 12B mistake. Emily wasn't sure if that was good or bad. He's in conference room B, Catherine continued. Your first assignment is waiting there. Questions? No question, Emily responded. Good. Don't make me regret Mr. Stone's decision. Catherine walked away before Emily could respond. Conference room B contained Marcus Chen, 3 other analysts who looked barely older than Emily, and enough paperwork to build a small house. Marcus looked up when she entered. Dark circles under his eyes suggested he hadn't slept since the restaurant incident. Emily, good, sit. She sat. This is the Meridian acquisition, Marcus said, gesturing to the mountain of documents. Consumer electronics company. We're acquiring them for $340 million. The close date is in 6 weeks. Your job is to review every single page of the regulatory filings and flag anything that could trigger compliance issues. One of the other analysts, a guy with expensive glasses and a smirk, snorted. Good luck. That's about 4,000 pages. 4,217, Marcus corrected. Emily, meet your team. Jason handles tax implications. Priya covers international regulations. David does financial modeling. You're on regulatory compliance. Jason's smirk deepened. No offense, but don't you usually give this stuff to people with, actual law degrees? Emily caught a Dodd-Frank error that would have cost us $89 million, Marcus said flatly. Can you say the same? The smirk vanished. Marcus turned back to Emily. You have 2 weeks, to complete your review. Flag anything questionable. If you're not sure, flag it anyway. Questions? Emily looked at the stacks of documents, doing the math in her head. 4,000 pages in 2 weeks meant roughly 300 pages a day, while learning a new job, while adjusting to corporate life, while... No questions, she said. Good. The files are also in the shared drive. Most people find it easier to work digitally, but I like hard copies for final review. He paused. Welcome to Stone Global. By noon, Emily had read 73 pages and flagged 4 potential issues. By 3 p.m., her eyes burned, and she'd consumed 3 cups of coffee that tasted like battery acid. By 6 p.m., when most of the office started emptying out, she was on page 212, and her brain felt like soup. Jason walked past her desk, jacket over his shoulder. You know you don't have to stay late on your first day, right? Nobody expects... Page 212, Emily muttered, highlighting another clause. He blinked. You read 200 pages today. 212 and counting, she corrected. That's actually impressive. He sounded surprised, maybe even grudgingly respectful. But seriously, pace yourself. This job's a marathon, not a sprint. Emily looked up at him. How many pages did you read on your first day? A pause. 60, he responded. Then I'm pacing just fine, she said. After he left, Emily allowed herself 30 seconds to close her eyes and breathe. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Heard you made it through day 1. Impressive. Most people quit by lunch. RS. Richard Stone had her personal number. Of course he did. She texted back. Still 4,000 pages to go. His reply came immediately. Good. I'd be disappointed if it was easy. Emily set down her phone and picked up the next document. Her feet hurt. Different heels, same pain. And her apartment felt very far away. But for the first time in 2 years, she wasn't thinking about rent. She was thinking about page 213. 3 weeks into the job, Emily found the bomb. Page 3847 of the Meridian acquisition documents, subsection buried in the Environmental Compliance Addendum. A manufacturing facility in Ohio with pending EPA violations that Meridian's legal team had somehow failed to disclose. Minor violations. Probably fixable. Except the fines could trigger a material adverse change clause, which meant Stone Global could walk away from the entire $340 million deal or renegotiate at a massive discount. Emily stared at her screen at 11:10 p.m., alone in the empty office. Her coffee had gone cold hours ago. She'd flagged 43 potential issues in 3 weeks, but this one was different. This one was nuclear. She could send it to Marcus in the morning. Follow protocol. Be the good analyst. Or... Her fingers hovered over her keyboard. Richard Stone's email sat in her contacts. She'd never used it. Junior analysts didn't email the CEO directly. That was career suicide. But this wasn't a minor compliance issue. This was the kind of leverage that could save or cost the company millions. She typed the email before she could talk herself out of it. Subject: Meridian acquisition. Critical finding. Mr. Stone, page 3847. Environmental violation that triggers MAC clause. We can renegotiate or walk. Your call. Emily. She hit send at 11:17 p.m. Her phone rang at 11:19 p.m. You're still in the office, Richard's voice. Not a question. I found something, Emily said. I can read, Ms. Emily Donovan. What I want to know is why you're emailing me at 11 at night instead of going through Marcus. Emily's stomach dropped. She'd overstepped. I thought you'd want to know immediately. I do, which is why I'm asking why you thought that. A pause. Walk me through it. She did. The EPA violations, the disclosure failure, the MAC clause trigger, the negotiation leverage. Her voice steadied as she talked through the legal implications. Silence on the other end. Then, what would you do? What? If this was your deal, your $340 million, what would you do? Richard's question hit like a stone. Emily's mind raced. Renegotiate. The violations are fixable, probably $15–20 million in remediation costs, but Meridian's legal team failed to disclose, which gives us leverage. I'd push for a $50 million reduction in purchase price. Marcus would walk away from the deal entirely. Marcus is risk-averse. The fundamentals are solid. We just have better negotiating position now. Another pause. Conference room A. Tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. Bring your analysis, Richard said. The line went dead. Emily didn't sleep. Again, she built a presentation, violation summary, cost analysis, negotiation strategy. By 5:30 a.m., she had 20 slides that would either make her career or end it. At 5:55 a.m., she walked into conference room A. Richard Stone sat at the head of the table, Marcus Chen beside him, looking confused and irritated. 3 other executives Emily didn't recognize, and Jason, her teammate, wearing the same smug expression from her first day. Ms. Emily Donovan, Richard said, you have 10 minutes. Convince us. Emily plugged in her laptop with shaking hands. The first slide appeared. Meridian acquisition, renegotiation strategy. She talked, fast, focused, hitting every point. The violations, the leverage, the math. Why walking away would be a mistake. Why renegotiating was the smart play. Marcus interrupted twice. She answered both times without breaking stride. When she finished, Richard leaned back in his chair. Questions? Yes, Jason raised his hand. Who gave a junior analyst authorization to contact the CEO directly about an active deal? The room went silent. Emily's career hung in that silence. Richard smiled. I did, 3 weeks ago, when I told her to call if she found anything important. He stood. Marcus, contact Meridian's team. We're renegotiating. Use Emily's numbers as the starting point. Marcus looked like he'd swallowed glass. Richard, I really think… Richard cut him off before he could finish. Emily's right. You would have walked away. That's why she came to me. He looked at Emily. Good instincts. Don't make me regret encouraging them. He walked out. The room erupted in whispers the moment the door closed. Jason stared at her. You just went over your supervisor's head. I know, Emily cut sharply. That's insane. Emily packed up her laptop. Her hands had stopped shaking. Maybe. But the deal's getting done. Marcus approached as the room emptied. His expression was unreadable. That, he said quietly, was either the gutsiest or stupidest thing I've seen in 10 years. Which one do you think it was? He almost smiled. Ask me after the renegotiation closes. The Meridian deal closed 6 weeks later. Purchase. Price. $287 million. Savings. $53 million. Emily's reputation in the office shifted overnight. Some people started taking her seriously. Others started watching her like a threat. Richard Stone sent her a single text. Well done. But Emily barely noticed the congratulations, because that same week she found something else. Something in Stone Global's own files, something that didn't make sense. And this time, she wasn't sure who she could tell. The file was labeled Project Aurora, Internal Use Only. Emily found it by accident. She'd been searching the shared drive for historical acquisition data when her search query pulled up a folder she shouldn't have had access to. She should have closed it immediately. Instead, she clicked. Inside. Financial projections for a merger with Techflow Industries. A company Stone Global had publicly stated they had no interest in acquiring just 2 months ago during a shareholder call. But these documents were dated from last week. Either Richard Stone had lied to shareholders or something else was happening. Something Emily didn't understand. She sat at her desk at 7:10 p.m., staring at the screen. The office had mostly emptied. Just a few workaholics scattered across the floor. You look like you've seen a ghost. Emily jumped. Jason stood behind her desk, messenger bag over his shoulder. Just tired, Emily said, minimizing the window. Jason's eyes flicked to her screen. Too late. That's Aurora, isn't it? Her stomach dropped. I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Jason pulled up a chair, lowering his voice. Look, I'm going to give you some advice because apparently someone needs to. Whatever you just found, forget about it. Jason, Emily called in shock. I'm serious, Emily. His smug expression was gone, replaced by something that looked like actual concern. You've been here 2 months. You don't understand how things work yet. Some files exist for reasons you don't want to know about. Emily's pulse hammered. Are you saying this is illegal? I'm saying it's none of your business. Jason stood. You made one big play and it worked out. Don't push your luck by playing detective. Richard Stone doesn't like people who ask the wrong questions. He left. Emily sat alone, with the file still open on her screen. She could delete her search history, pretend she never saw it, keep her head down and her career on track. Or she could do what every instinct screamed at her to do. Find out the truth. The next morning, Emily requested a meeting with Richard Stone. Catherine looked at her like she'd requested a meeting with God. Mr. Stone doesn't take meetings with junior analysts unless there's an emergency. It's about Project Aurora, Emily said quietly. Catherine's professional mask slipped for half a second. Wait here. 10 minutes later, Emily was in Richard's office. He stood at his usual spot by the window, but this time he didn't turn around when she entered. You accessed files above your clearance level, Richard said to the window. Emily's mouth went dry. The search function gave me access. I didn't hack. I know. Richard turned to face her. His expression was unreadable. IT flagged it immediately. I've been waiting to see what you'd do next. A test. This whole thing was a test. The TechFlow merger, Emily said, forcing her voice steady. You told shareholders it wasn't happening. I did. But the projections are dated from last week. They are. Emily waited for an explanation. None came. So you lied, Emily said. To shareholders. That's securities fraud. Richard walked to his desk and sat down. Is it? Or did I simply say we had no interest in acquiring them at that moment, which was true? The projections are exploratory, preliminary research, not a commitment. That's a technicality. Law is built on technicalities, Ms. Donovan. You of all people should know that. Richard leaned forward. Here's what's actually happening. TechFlow's stock is inflated. Their CEO is running the company into the ground but hiding it well. If we announced interest now, the price would spike and we'd overpay by $200 million. So you're waiting for the price to drop, Emily said slowly. I'm waiting for the market to correct itself based on publicly available information. When TechFlow releases their Q3 earnings next month, their stock will tank. Then we'll make our move. Perfectly legal. It made sense. Brutal, calculated, but legal. Why are you telling me this? Emily asked. Richard studied her with those sharp, assessing eyes. Because you found the file, and instead of running to Marcus or HR or a lawyer, you came directly to me. You wanted the truth before making accusations. He paused. That shows judgment, the kind I need in people who work for me. Emily's brain was still catching up. So this was another test. Everything is a test, Emily. The question is whether you pass or fail. Richard stood. You passed. But here's the real question. Now that you know what we're doing, can you live with it? Emily thought about the TechFlow CEO who was apparently destroying his own company, about the employees who would lose their jobs when the stock crashed, about the difference between legal and ethical. The employees, Emily said, when we acquire TechFlow, what happens to them? Richard's expression shifted, something that might have been respect. We keep 80% of the workforce. The CEO gets fired. The company gets restructured properly. We're not the villains in this story, just the opportunists. In business, there's no difference. Richard walked to the door, opening it. You have another choice to make, Ms. Donovan. Stay on the Meridian team or move to Aurora. Bigger deal, higher stakes, more visibility. Also, more risk. Emily looked at him. At this man who kept testing her, pushing her, seeing how far she'd go. I'm in, Emily said. Richard smiled. I thought you might be. Welcome to the deep end. As Emily left his office, she realized she'd just crossed a line she couldn't uncross. She wasn't just working for Richard Stone anymore. She was becoming like him. 3 months later, the TechFlow acquisition closed at $891 million, exactly $203 million less than it would have cost if Stone Global had moved when the stock was high. Emily had been right in the center of it all. Analysis, strategy sessions, late-night calls with legal teams. Richard had pulled her into meetings with executives twice her age, letting her present findings to people who'd been doing deals since before she was born. Some of them had listened. Others had looked at her like she was a child playing dress-up. She'd stopped caring which was which. The deal closed on a Friday. By Monday morning, Stone Global's stock had jumped 7%. Richard's gamble had paid off spectacularly. Emily sat at her desk, no longer the junior analyst corner spot, but a real office with a door and a window, staring at an email that had arrived at 6:47 a.m. Subject, promotion. Emily, Director of Strategic Analysis, effective immediately. Salary, $140K. Your office is on 48. Catherine has the details. You've earned it. RS Director, at 24 years old, after 6 months. Emily read the email 3 times, waiting for the excitement to hit. It didn't come. Instead, she felt something else, something hollow. She thought about the TechFlow employees who'd lost their jobs despite Richard's promise of keeping 80%. Turned out restructuring meant more cuts than anyone had admitted. She thought about the stock manipulation that was technically legal but felt like cheating. She thought about who she'd been 6 months ago, the waitress who corrected a contract because it was the right thing to do, not because it would save millions, not because it would advance her career, just because it was right. Her phone buzzed. A text from Richard. "Meet me in my office. Now." Richard stood at his window as always. But this time, when Emily entered, he turned immediately. "You don't look happy," Richard said, studying her face. Emily closed the door behind her. "I am. It's a great opportunity." "That's not what I asked," Richard said as he sat on the edge of his desk, arms crossed. "What's wrong?" The question surprised her. In 6 months, Richard had never asked her how she felt about anything, only what she thought, what she'd do, what she'd found. "The TechFlow employees," Emily said quietly. "You told me 80% would keep their jobs." 62% kept their jobs. Close enough, he responded. "That's 200 people, Richard, 200 families. 200 people who were working for a company that would have collapsed entirely in 18 months, Richard countered. "We didn't create the problem. We just took advantage of it. And because we did, 62% still have paychecks. That's more than they would have had otherwise." The math made sense. The logic was airtight. But Emily still felt sick. "I used to think there was a difference between legal and right," Emily said. "Now I'm not sure anymore." Richard was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood and walked to the window, gesturing for Emily to join him. She did. They stood side by side, looking out over the city. From this height, the people below looked like ants, tiny, insignificant. "You know what the view teaches you?" Richard asked. "Perspective. From up here, individual problems look small because you can see the whole system, the bigger picture." "And if you're one of the ants?" Emily asked. Richard glanced at her. "Then you do everything you can to get up here where you can actually change things." He paused. "You think I don't know what it's like down there? I grew up in a 2-bedroom apartment with 5 siblings. My father worked 3 jobs and still couldn't make rent half the time. I know exactly what those 200 TechFlow employees are going through." Emily looked at him, surprised. He'd never mentioned his background before. "So why do it?" she asked. "If you know what it's like?" "Because from up here, I can make sure companies don't fail in the first place. I can build things that employ thousands. I can move markets, change industries, create opportunities." Richard met her eyes. "You can't help people from the bottom, Emily. You can only survive there. If you want to actually make a difference, you have to climb." Emily looked back out at the city, at the buildings, the traffic, the endless motion of people trying to survive. "And what if climbing changes who you are?" she asked softly. Richard smiled, sad, knowing. "It always does. The question is whether you become someone who uses power to help people or someone who uses people to get power." He turned to face her fully. "I think you're the first kind. That's why I hired you. That's why I'm promoting you. Because you still ask these questions." Emily's throat felt tight. "What if I stop asking? Then I'll fire you." Richard said it simply, matter-of-factly. "I don't need more people who just do what I tell them. I need people who challenge me, who keeps me honest, who sees the ants even from up here." He walked toward the door, then paused. "The promotion stands. Take it or leave it. But Emily..." He looked back. "Don't let this job turn you into someone you don't recognize. The moment you stop questioning what we do is the moment you become useless to me." He left. Emily stood alone at the window, looking down at the city below. Director of Strategic Analysis, $140,000. Office on the 48th floor. 6 months ago, she would have killed for this opportunity. Now she had to decide if it was killing her. Emily took the promotion, but she made herself a promise. She'd track every person affected by every deal she touched. she'd push for better. Severance packages, retraining programs, transition support. She'd use her position to make sure the ants weren't forgotten. Some nights, she still thought about Lumiere, about Derek and the other servers working double shifts to make rent, about the version of herself who'd corrected a contract just because it was right. That Emily wasn't gone. She was just looking at the world from a different height now. Richard had been right about one thing. You couldn't help people from the bottom. But Emily was determined to prove you didn't have to lose yourself at the top. 6 months later, when Stone Global announced a new employee protection initiative for all acquisitions, mandatory severance, job placement assistance, extended healthcare, the board asked Richard whose idea it was. He smiled and said, "Ask my director of strategic analysis." Emily stood at her window on the 48th floor, looking down at the city, and for the first time since signing that contract, she felt like herself again. Different, changed, harder in some ways, softer in others, but still her. And that was enough. If you enjoyed this episode, like, comment, and subscribe for more. Don't forget to hit the bell icon to stay updated, share the story with friends, and join us for more stories.